All right, and please feel free if anybody can't see my screen or if knows of somebody who's trying to get in. Oh, I see one now. Feel free to shoot a message and hopefully we can see that as we go.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for the call. That's talk to you later.
All right, everyone. So again, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. My name is Jim Lambert, Managing Director for Wood Partners. I want to just run down sort of verbally here how we're going to run this tonight. A little bit different than last time, only because of where we are in the process. If you joined last time, some of you, this may be the first time you're seeing the project. And if you are, welcome. And if you've seen it before, welcome back. We appreciate it. We've had a couple of meetings. Well, I think we've had one community meeting, 2 or 3 Board of Selectmen meetings prior to this. So this would be our, some of you may be seeing this for the 4th time in different versions. And then upcoming on Monday, we've got a ZBA hearing, which I'm going to get into in a few minutes here. So for those of you who have not joined us before, I'm going to briefly explain who we are as a developer. I'm going to just let you know who our team is that's working on the project. I think that's important, although most of those folks are not with us tonight. This is primarily just the development team's going to run through this tonight with the consultants coming in to help us out starting next week in front of the ZBA. Of course, going to give you the updates on the project, where we've changed things, where it's staying the same from last time you've seen it, if you've seen it before. And then I think really what's important for tonight too is I want to talk to you about just the next steps in the process. Tonight's meeting is certainly informal, being hosted by us, Wood Partners, the developer. But starting next week, we'll be in the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing process, which is much more controlled by the board and more of a formal process. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go as well. Let's see if my slides will work here. So far, it's stuck. Yep. Okay, briefly, I'm not going to read this whole slide, but just want to let you know who we are. Our company is called Wood Partners. We are a real estate development firm. We're based out of Atlanta. We've got 20 offices around the country, so we're national in scope. We've been operating here in Massachusetts now for well over a decade. We have built, as you can see, sort of towards the bottom of the slide, about 3,000 units in the state of Massachusetts alone, 2 of which are currently under construction right now. One called Alta at River's Edge currently in Wayland, 218 units, which was permitted through the town of Wayland and is also our land seller in that project. And then Alta Assembly in Somerville, which is a 329 unit project, which is at right outside of Assembly Row. That is currently under construction and due to deliver early next year. And then below that, you can see the other projects that we've done around the state, primarily suburban, all the way in from Cambridge out to Andover on 495 North to Franklin 495 South. And then certainly, obviously, looking forward to hopefully moving forward in this project here in Bolton, which is right down our alley. Certainly happy to answer questions later about who we are, but that's the quick overview. Our project team, of course, Wood Partners is the applicant and the developer, but we're also going to be the general contractor and property manager of this project. So you get us all the way through, which we think is really an advantage that that other firms don't have. And it also, in our opinion, it allows us to really take full responsibility for the project from beginning to end. Which we think is good for the municipality and for the residents of the town that we're working in. You know where to find us, you know where to look, you know who's responsible. Our architect on the project is Market Square Architects out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Our civil engineer is Allen and Major Associates out of Lakeville, Mass. Our landscape architect is Grady Consulting out of Kingston, Mass. Our wastewater and well consultant, On-Site Engineering out of Franklin. And then our zoning counsel, Goulston and Stores out of Boston. That's a team you'll be seeing throughout the next 6 months or so during the Zoning Board of Appeal hearing process.
Is this approved?
All right, on to the project. So just to orient folks on where the project is, most of you already know this, but 580 Main Street. The project is proposed in the rear of what's existing now as the Bolton Office Park, which is sort of a double donut office building that's attached right off of 117, also known as Main Street, and of course, very close to the intersection of 495. This is another shot, same shot, just zoomed in. So you can see the Bolton Office Park, you can see Bolton Country Manor, and then the red line shows you with the rough outline of the portion of land that will become part of this project. Of course, half of the office building will be demolished. The other half will remain in use. The part where the red line crosses through the donut right now, that will go away. And then that'll be the land will be subdivided and it'll be incorporated into the multifamily housing project, that component. As you can see, we're taking over what was a very large, underutilized and vacant, mostly vacant parking lot in the back. Just one more site aerial, if you don't already know where it is, but you can see 495 in the background. Again, with the white dotted line, the rough outline of the site. Obviously, the site drive will remain roughly as is and will be continue to be used by the existing office building or the remaining office building, as well as Bolton Country Manor. A couple of photos of the site for folks who are not familiar with it. Starting up in the top left, this is a view on the entry drive as it is today, coming off of Main Street. Bolton Country Manor on the right, top right in the distance. And then the bottom left and bottom right are different shots of the existing office building as they exist today. On the bottom right is the parking lot that'll largely become the site of the project. Right, I'm going to give an overview of the proposed project, certainly for folks who haven't seen it. As I've already stated, so the site is currently comprised of the two office buildings, one of which will be demolished and will make way for the apartment development. The project will consist of 229 units, and that will be in 4 traditionally inspired residential buildings, as well as a standalone amenity building, freestanding garages, and also a standalone mail and package room that I think is new from the last time. All of the buildings, I think importantly, are 3 stories or less. So that the residential buildings that will have units in them are all 3 stories. The clubhouse, which is also the property management building, the mail and package building, and then the garages will all be 1 story. The property will feature a full suite of amenities. This is a Class A development. So we'll have fitness, property management, work from home and business centers, multiple courtyards, including a pool, outdoor fireplaces, areas for seating, and areas for grilling as well, amongst other things. And then as a reminder, so this is a comprehensive permit, the 40B program. We're using it. We're going through a LIP, which is in conjunction with the town. But 25% of the units, this is important, are deemed affordable for folks earning up to 80% of the area median income. But importantly, all of the units in the project will count towards Bolton's affordable housing count, so they're 10%. I think that's really obviously important, as you can understand how this project will put Bolton over your 10% cap for quite some time. So here's the site plan. Largely, as you've seen before, maybe in a little bit different format and some more color to it. So as you come in the entry drive off of Main Street, the first thing that you'll see is the clubhouse dead ahead with a pool as well. And then off to the right, you'll see what we've got as a turn off with a pool. I'm sorry, not with a pool, with a package and a mailroom. So folks can drive into site when they come home from work, pull right into the package and mail building, pull up short term, grab their mail and package, and then proceed on to the parking space that they'll use that's closest to their unit. The clubhouse, of course, is next, where property management will be during business hours. And then it'll be open to residents' use, as well as for close, in some parts of it, 24 hours, others during business hours as well. So that's where the things that I listed off, like the fitness center will be, work from home space, lounge space, and so on and so forth, will all be housed in that clubhouse. And then as you proceed through the site, we've got a couple of garage buildings that have garage individually garage spaces that will be leased out to folks.
Is it the 40B?
Excuse me, could folks just mute themselves, please, unless you're asking a question? Thank you. And then again, it's a there's 4 residential buildings in the project. So the first you'll see is building 1. It's the U-shaped building facing building 2, which is a nearly identical U-shaped building as well. Those are the 2 larger buildings in the project, but also 3 stories. Building 1 will have an elevator, as we'll note again a little bit later in the presentation, which is new from last time. Buildings 3 and 4 in the back are also 3 stories. Those are both walk-up buildings, but certainly the smaller buildings in the project. And then there's green space, a dog park, and then you'll see, if I flip to this next slide, sort of where the well radius will run in the blue circles. Hopefully you can see those. That is our well radius. So those areas will remain as either just open green space or wetlands as they are today. So those will remain undeveloped. Give you guys a second to take a look at that. We'll keep going. I think what I should point out on this particular presentation slide is up here towards the front. This is where the leaching field will be on both sides of the road for the new wastewater treatment plant that'll be part of the project. All right, into some rendering. So I know this is the first time anybody's seen these. This last time we hadn't developed these yet, or elevations. So what we're looking at now is an early rendering of the clubhouse. And this is looking basically from building 1 back at the clubhouse, looking back towards Main Street. So behind the building would be the entry drive leading out to Main Street. On the left in this view would be Bolton Country Manor. And you can kind of see the brick on the right side of the picture. That is what will remain of the Bolton office buildings. So you can see 1-story structure. We've tried to utilize design cues, which our architect will get into further during the ZBA process, from the surrounding area, with the white look, stone base, wood doors, wood posts, and the black windows. We think it looks really sharp. We think it reflects some of the other buildings that are close by in the area, and will fit in very nicely, both in height, roof line, and design scheme with the existing surrounding area. But again, we're going to get into much more detail in the ZBA process when we have the architect and the engineers on board to go into each one of these portions of the project in more depth. This is a look back at some of the 3-story buildings. I believe this is building 3. Again, 3-story slope roof. We've tried to mix in some whites as well as some wood look siding, wood look doors, and obviously with the balconies. The vast majority of the units do have outdoor space, private balconies, which we think is extremely important. People want fresh air. They want to be able to go outside. They want to be able to sit outside and drink their coffee or work on their laptop. So we're really excited about the ability to provide those for the residents. Another look, this is a little bit of a different color scheme on the different building. This is obviously a red, white, and sort of more of a neutral, which we'll define a little bit further as we go through the process and get feedback from the board. Again, trying to use colors that are seen throughout Bolton, throughout Main Street, to feel like we're part of the community. That looks like a building that should be here. I apologize. There's a little bit of blur here on this plan. This is the landscape plan, and it's a little busy, so I apologize for that. But just want to give folks a flavor of a very early initial planting plan. What you'll see sort of from the courtyards in the middle of buildings 1 and 2, and then the plantings that'll surround buildings 3 and 4 as well as the clubhouse. Long way to go here, certainly on developing this scheme. This is conceptual at this point. The other thing you don't really get a great flavor of is how much green there is around the property from the existing woods and wetlands and fields. It's really a pretty sight. Unit mix. I figured it's worthwhile going through the unit mix here. I'm just going to move this out of my way. So it's in this, the project is proposed as a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And also just a reminder, again, 25% of the units are deemed affordable for folks making 80% of the area median income or less. So you'll see that on the right-hand column. We've tried to provide here a breakdown both of the percentage of the unit types and also of the percent affordable of each. So you've got 66 1-bedroom market rate units, 22 affordable 1-bedroom units, 87 2-bedroom units that are market rate, and 30 affordable units that are market rate, for a total of 117. And then 18 market rate 3 bedrooms and 6 affordable 3 bedrooms for a total of 24. You get to your 229. So, and as a reminder for folks who might not be familiar with the comprehensive permit process in the 40B program, there is a state requirement that at least 10% of the units are 3 bedrooms to increase the diversity of the housing stock. Down below, parking. This is our parking matrix. So we have 354 surface parking spaces. So those are your standard parking spaces outside. We have currently 28 garage spaces for a total of 382 parking spaces, or a 1.67 ratio per unit, which we feel is healthy and is above what we have typically done in other suburban towns. So we feel really good about that. We're going to continue to look at it, and we'd love to increase the garage count, but just given some of the constraints physically on the site, excuse me, that's as many as we've been able to get. We know those are going to be very well received by folks. They have been at other properties, and obviously, given the climate here in New England, folks want to keep their cars inside. So we're excited to be able to offer 28, but we're still trying to look for ways to add more if possible. All right, utilities. So as everybody knows, the town of Bolton does not have a lot in the way of public utilities, which is very unusual for developing large-scale multifamily housing development. So because there's no public water or sewer, the project will be providing an on-site wastewater treatment plant, which will be permitting and are permitting currently through the state, through the DEP, and then wells for domestic water and fire suppression services. So it is, we're really excited about this approach. It is unusual. It's a challenge. It's both a challenge from a cost standpoint, from a permitting standpoint, and frankly, from a space on a site standpoint. So to make all these pieces work, it's been a really a difficult task, and credit to our design team for making it work for the project that you see in front of you today. It's certainly a challenge, and one that we're excited to tackle. And then finally, because there's no gas available to the site, this one we're really excited about. We're going to be using all electric heat cooling and cooking, excuse me. And this is extremely unique. While you do see wastewater and well occasionally in the market, at least today, you have not seen electric heat cooling and cooking in Class A market rate. When I say market rate, meaning sort of non-subsidized housing, it's very unusual. We'll be one of the first, and we're really excited about that. We're learning a lot as we research it, and we can't wait to get that online and see how it's received. I'm not going to go through these slides. We've been through these, and I know there's a lot of questions about these that we'll either try to tackle some of tonight, but I would say probably even more so during the ZBA process with the consulting team. But just a couple of bullet points here on more energy efficient approaches here that we're using. So of course, Massachusetts is above and beyond many other states in the country to begin with the code. And so certainly that gives us a starting point for being energy efficient, more so than some of our counterparts around the country just on day one. Massachusetts uses the stretch energy code, which was adopted by Bolton in 2016, which is 10% even more efficient than the standard code. So that gives us a really good starting point. As I mentioned before, the heating systems will be electric with programmable thermostats. So we'll reduce the demands on utilities. Again, very unique and something that we're really excited about. And each unit will utilize a MERV 8 air filter as well. Hot water will be electric, which goes without saying, given we don't have gas. We'll be using low flow plumbing fixtures, which has become the norm for us in all of our developments. Lighting will be, the vast majority will be LED lighting, both in the apartments and the common areas and the garages. Our appliances, where they're available, will be Energy Star. Certainly not all of the appliances that we use are available in Energy Star rating, but when they are, we use them. And then our windows will be operable windows, but low E glass with high U value. All right, EV stations becoming more and more important every day. I feel like every time we take a look at a new development that we're pursuing, we want to add more and more of these. So, we've taken the approach where we're going to have a certain number of these available on day one, meaning installed, ready to be used. And then what we like to do now is sort of future proofing is we run conduit for a fair amount more of EV charging stations that we could bring in and hook up down the road as demand calls for it. So we'll get back to you during the ZBA process on how many we've actually providing on day one versus how many we plan to have reserved for the future. But we understand that that's where the world is going. More and more folks, in Massachusetts are driving either fully electric or hybrid vehicles. And so we view this as the right thing to do, but also as amenity for folks living in the development. We'll have bicycle racks. We obviously know biking is huge for folks living in the town of Bolton who want to get out and enjoy the beautiful town and the outdoors. So we'll have certainly parking for bicycles. And then solar panels. I know this note here says that are being considered, but we're actually moving beyond that. And our two larger buildings, building 1 and building 2, we do intend to put solar arrays on those buildings. All right, just a couple of quick bullet points here. So from last time, for folks who have seen this presentation previously, a couple of things we wanted to point out. I mean, there are more, but some of the key things that we wanted to point out that have changed since last time we presented to the community. And a lot of this came out of comments that we heard from you all and going back and looking at what does and does not work in our opinion to the project. So there was a lot of discussion about an aging population, wanting to find a place like this to live, and that likely will be, a pretty good portion of our population. And so with that, there was discussion about, hey, you don't have any elevators. And the reason for that originally was we were using, a building type, which is a 3-story building, walk up, not required by code, and certainly a much simpler type building. But we heard the discussion. We thought about it ourselves, and we think it makes all the sense in the world. So we added an elevator to building 1, which is our largest building. So that building will serve that elevator will serve the building, which is 74 units. So that way we have a variety now So if somebody wants to live in an elevator building, they can do that. And if they don't care one way or the other, then they don't have to. So we have options. There was a lot of discussion about sidewalks and in sort of the pedestrian experience in and around the site. So we have added sidewalks all along the entry drive. So that connect all the way through the site itself. So anybody, within our site or coming from Main Street outside the site or from Bolton Country Manor or from the office buildings can certainly now walk completely safe on the sidewalks out to Main Street and either head left up towards the retail going that way, or on what we will build as the extended sidewalk area going east towards Clinton Savings Bank. So that was another thing that we had heard from folks that they wanted, and we have put in the plan, and that exists in the plan today. And then on the HVAC side, so I think last time, obviously we had committed to doing electric heat, but we were, I would say, not yet clear on what that system would look like. We are a little bit more clear on that today. We have decided to move forward with a hyperheat system. Previously, we had looked at something a little bit less that had a backup sort of electric baseboard setup. We've moved away from that to a full, excuse me, sorry, somebody's trying to get in here, to a full heat pump system, electric heat pump system, which we're excited about. Again, as I said before, we'll be, one of the first of this types of developments to have done that in the state. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, we are committing to do solar PV on arrays on buildings 1 and 2, which are the two larger U-shaped buildings in the project. So hopefully, sorry, my presentation stalled out here. There we go. All right. That's sort of the overview and the update on the development itself. Now I want to talk a little bit about a very important issue associated with the development next door in the sports fields and community garden area. I know this has been discussed sort of since day one. We've had a lot of follow-up discussion, both internally and with folks at the town for how to tackle this issue. And just as a reminder, so today you can either walk or drive through the Bolton Office Park, back through a grassy area, and access the community gardens as well as the sports fields through sort of roughly this direction now. And in the process of exploring our options for wells and what wells are there today, what was determined by the engineering firms is that the parking and the driving in that area is really not allowed even today, forgetting about the new well areas that we're going to be implementing down the road as part of the project. Just today, that's not
okay. What's the matter?
to be used. And so we've studied this. It's difficult to sort of maintain the same access given the well radius that you can see here.
Okay,
So
but what'd she do?
What
Or
we've
what
had
did she
Alan and
say?
Major, our civil engineer, take a look at closely is, well, how else can we get back there? And look, we understand the importance of access. We fully
Yeah, me
support it.
too.
We're
And I
fully
didn't
committed
send
on
you a
every one
text
of
to
our
remind you.
meetings.
Sorry.
I hope she's there tomorrow.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Could you all mute your?
Yeah, she should be.
Friday.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so mom,
Okay.
Monica was there.
I
I
can
said,
mute.
Monica, where's Monica? She said, oh, she's not here. She doesn't work at night.
Okay, I think I hopefully was able to do that. So in any event, so we've looked at a couple of different options that we're discussing with the town, and there's still certainly a ways to go in trying to figure out the final solution here. But what we think we can do at this moment is continue vehicular access through the site where you see this little orange area. Hopefully you can see my pointer, and then connect to what is an existing drive that exists there today. And so instead of coming in through the site this way and then down, you would have to take sort of the long way in a vehicle down and around. And we've sort of identified 3 different options for getting over here that need to be vetted out further, both by the engineers and also just by the town. We looked at getting access here from the school, but obviously during school hours, that's not something that is available. So that would be available during after hours, but we wanted to make sure there's access at all times, of course, for folks, primarily for folks who want to use the community garden, because the sports field likely are not in use when school's in use anyway. But so we've identified a path to kind of get around the outside of this well radius, sneak through the Bolton Country Manor and where our site and Bolton Country Manor's land meet each other, and then connect to the existing path, drive around. And we've identified some parking areas here that could handle a number of car spaces. I think something like 30 or 40 spaces, 32 maybe, if I recall correctly. And then obviously you'd have to walk either this direction or this direction or this direction to utilize the fields and gardens. So we know that this is in process. It's not a perfect solution. It's certainly not a final solution. It's one we want input from the community on. We want input from folks at the town, and it's going to have to be a collaborative effort between ourselves and folks, members of the town, because it's town-owned land. So we are committed and continue to be committed to working through this process throughout the time that we're permitting the project through the ZBA, working with officials for the town to figure out the best way to do this. We will provide access. We just need to figure out the best way to do it. This is our current proposal. There aren't too many different options, unfortunately, just given the constraints of the site, but we think this works, but certainly want input both tonight and throughout the rest of the process on this. We know it's important. Okay, some community benefits. We've showed this slide before, but there's a mix of benefits that'll come from the project for the town. Tax revenue is certainly one. So with 229 units, providing income that wasn't previously there, projections of upwards of $700,000 in taxes annually. And then of course, there's really no tax on public utilities because of the project, because they'll be all sort of self-sustaining. This is, we're going to be providing a high quality Class A rental housing option that currently does not exist in the town. It's much needed affordable housing. It's obviously become, both in Bolton and all of Massachusetts, a very expensive place to buy a home. So, in developments like ours, which we love, is we see a mix. We see folks who are saving for a home, maybe one day, maybe never want to buy a home, but want to live in your beautiful town. Folks maybe sell their home and want to stay in town in your family. And then obviously just by the simple fact that we're providing a fully managed property, we expect that some of the aging population, empty nesters, will want to move down, stay in the community, and have a full service development available to them. Disposable income. I mean, certainly at the rent levels you see in Class A housing today, on the market rate side, these are going to be people who can pay those rents. Those people will certainly be visiting and patronizing local businesses, which we think will be well received by those local businesses. More feet on the ground, which is great for everybody. And then I think from a housing standpoint, the scale of this development will allow the town of Bolton to get over their 10% and get a safe harbor in the 40B process. So importantly, what that does not mean that nothing can be built in the future. It just means that the town controls their destiny a lot more than they had in the past, which we think is hugely important. And then construction jobs. Certainly these are temporary and shorter term, but there will be more folks creating jobs in the short term, and then a smaller number of jobs, but permanent jobs on the property management side as well. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the process, so folks can know what to expect going, both how we got here and going forward. So, so again, this is part of the LIP process. So we had to apply to the state first for what's called a project eligibility letter. our project eligibility, and it comes in the form of a letter, I should say. Our application for that was a joint application between WP East Acquisitions LLC, which is our entity, and the town of Bolton, signed by the Board of Selectmen. So that was earlier in the year. That was submitted, reviewed by the state. There was a public comment period. And ultimately, the state deemed that the location and the aspects of what we were proposing were suitable for this type of housing. And they issued us a project eligibility letter on August 27th of this year, a couple of months ago. So what that does is once you have that letter, then you're allowed by statute to apply to the Board of Appeals for your comprehensive permit. So between August and October, we spent time refining the plan and working through the application process, which we ultimately submitted in October to the ZBA, October 14th to be exact, which was the date that it was accepted as a fully complete submission. And then, of course, this coming Monday will be the first ZBA hearing, November 8th. And I think a big part of this meeting was just to let people know, how this works going forward. This meeting tonight is being hosted by us, the developer. Public comment here is obviously more than welcome and encouraged. And, we're looking forward to hearing your thoughts and questions. But in reality, the process goes through the zoning board. So the formal and official way to really get your comments in front of the town and to the people who ultimately will vote on the project is to do that in the ZBA process. So would encourage you on Monday night to attend that meeting. It is virtual. And that is really the first opportunity to formally, certainly not your first opportunity, but your first opportunity to formally provide public comment to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then I got permission from Valerie to put this on here. If you have any questions between now and then, or even throughout the entire process, obviously you can always reach out to us, but you're encouraged to reach out to your town planner, and her contact information for Valerie here is on the screen, and certainly you can find it on the town website as well. And then I thought I would just show, this is the official notice of public hearing. This can be found on the website as well, the town website, or you can certainly email me or Valerie and we can get you this information. We want to make sure everybody has this. This will be a Zoom meeting at 7 o'clock on Monday, the 8th, in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that completes the presentation. So certainly covered a lot. Again, didn't go too in depth on any one piece of the project. That's going to come as part of the public hearing process. Just as a reminder, so we have all those folks that you saw at the very beginning. I'm gonna, sorry to make anybody dizzy here. I'm gonna click all the way back. At our public hearing on Monday, and then going forward, we're gonna have this full team available, and they're gonna present along with myself. And they're going to be, I think, as importantly, there to answer questions both from the board and from the public in much more detail. And I think the way it'll run, and certainly this is at the desire of the zoning board and the chair of that board, but generally what likely will happen is we'll present something similar to what we presented tonight on the first night on Monday night. We'll make introductions to all the folks that are working on the projects. And then really at that point, it's in the hands of the board on how they want to proceed. Typically what we've seen is, oops, sorry, somebody trying to jump in here. What we've seen is, each hearing focus a little bit more on a couple of items of the project. So, one night you might focus on architecture. One night you might focus a little bit more on stormwater and civil related matters. Another night you might focus on traffic, something like that. So we'll certainly be prepared with the team to tackle any of those issues on any given night. But at the direction of the board, most likely will be, there'll be certain nights that are focused on more aspects of the project where you have more time to sort of dive into the details. It's obviously a big project, and we we fully intend to go through it in depth. It'll be reviewed by, by folks who were retained by the town to review certain aspects of the project as third parties. And we're just really looking forward to the process and going through it and presenting to the board and getting feedback and going from there. So I guess with that, I'm going to open it up to some questions. And please, if you simply just want me to flip back to a page that you didn't catch, if I move too quickly, just let me know. Otherwise, I think there's a raise your hand function on here. If I'm not mistaken, that I can utilize. I do see a couple of chats. Okay. Don't know about that. So does anybody have, okay, somebody raise their hand. Ed Sterling. I'm going to try to click on that and see if that works. Ed, are you there?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.
I am a former selectman, former Concom, former long-range planning. I've lived at Town Hall for many years. Currently Parks and Recreation Chairman. One of my big concerns at the moment is the number of possible children. I calculate about 141 units with 2 or 3 bedrooms. A state average I saw online was something like 1.71 children per household in Massachusetts. Let's reduce that significantly. We could well be talking about 150 to 200 children, let's say. Playground and play areas is obviously going to be an issue. We'll pack the kids off to school. They'll come home, and aside from the pool and clubhouse, it seems to me that some kind of a playground is going to be necessary. You talked about bike racks. That's great. I'm thinking of kids bicycling around. And that's important. They can use the sidewalks, perhaps going into the village, going to the left. But the whole concept of recreation, I think, needs to be addressed as part of the plan, especially for children. And again, what the anticipated spectrum of age is. I don't know if you've studied that, but I'm just thinking of a lot of kids after school. Where do they go? Where do they go on weekends? In this fairly tightly confined area with Route 117, extremely high traffic. Right at the entrance, you almost have a convergence point of the 2 lanes into one going westbound, with people racing down the west left lane, trying to get an advantage to jump in and be the first guy in line. So traffic control at your entrance, I think, is going to be a big issue. Again, children on bicycles, probably okay. Going to have to go on the sidewalk, I'm sure, due to the amount of traffic that is on 117. Going east, it's going to be deathly, just death trap as people come off 495 and hit that underpass. So kids trying to go to buy a Coke or ice cream or something at the country cupboard, that's going to be an issue. Something has to be addressed there. And I don't know if you were anticipating a little convenience store or something like that. There is currently nothing in the village itself. There's an anticipated little general store that probably is a long ways away, but I'm thinking again of kids and leisure and recreation. If you factor that into the plan, no answer is needed at the moment. It just seems to be something that's going to be important as you begin to develop your plans down the road. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I will address just a couple of components of that quickly. So in reverse too. So I probably failed to mention, and obviously it's going to be a major point of discussion during the process. A full traffic study has been completed. That, and I did mention there'll be a night where we'll probably dive into that more specifically. But totally understand the traffic condition. I don't live too far from here, and I spent a great deal of time driving back and forth on 117. Know it intimately, and not as well as folks like you who live in town, but I'm there quite a bit, several times a week, and totally get it. And we have studied it, and we do know that will be a major point of discussion, and we understand and welcome that discussion as we go through the process, and that will happen in depth. But yeah, great comments on leisure. Certainly the connection to the fields that we have is going to be helpful, and not to rely on those, but certainly not to forget those as well. Those are going to be available to obviously anybody living at this property who will then become a Bolton resident, as they are to all Bolton residents. But yeah, points very well taken. Something that I've noted and probably is lacking. Something we'll look at closer. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Can I don't know how to raise my hand here. I don't know how to do it, but I'd like to put a little input into this.
Sure. Could you just let us know who's speaking? I just see a phone number.
It's Lorraine McGuire, and I do live on Main Street.
Okay.
I live diagonally across from where you're building this. I have grandchildren. I have walked these streets out there with them on their bikes. It's a death trap. The sidewalks are very skinny. It's just, it's not suitable for children to even really walk on those streets. But, and I'm very, very concerned with traffic because I can hardly pull out of my own driveway sometimes. I have to wait like 10 minutes. Traffic is it's going to increase by how many? 400? There's going to be like 400 cars parked there. So that's how many people are going to be exiting, and it's going to add to the congestion that's already congested.
Yeah, Elaine, thank you. So again, we'll be discussing traffic in depth, excuse me.
On November 8th?
Beginning on November 8th, but again, sort of from there, it'll be at the desire and at the direction of the board. So we'll make a brief presentation. We've only got a limited amount of time on the 8th, a lot to cover, all aspects of the project, sort of like we did tonight. Really all you get the ability to do in a first meeting is sort of touch on and introduce the project to the board and to the public, whoever hasn't seen it yet. And then, certainly it'll be at the board's direction as to which topics they want to tackle next and when. So, they'll lay out a hearing schedule, and they'll lay out and it may be all up front, or it may be one hearing at a time, what they want to focus on next. But that's really going to be at the board's discretion. But yeah, it'll absolutely be covered in depth. There's no doubt about it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's my main concern.
I completely understand. Thank you very much. Who's next? Is anybody else raising their hand here? Let me see. Don't know. I don't see any hands raised, but certainly if anybody doesn't know how to do that and wants to jump in, please let me know.
Hello.
Hi, who's speaking? Oh, I do see a couple of hands raised now. Here we go.
Hello.
Hi, who's speaking?
It's Brad Reed.
Hi, Brad. How you doing?
I think he's having trouble unmuting himself.
Oh, see if I can do that for him. I can only ask to unmute, but I cannot unmute you, Brad. I think you gotta. There you go. Nope. Now you're muted again. Oh, there you go, Brad. Can you speak? We should be able to hear you now.
No.
Nope.
No.
All right, Brad, we'll come back to you if somebody else wants to jump in. Don't see hands. Well, maybe I'm not looking in the right spot here.
Hello.
Yep, we can hear you, Brad.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I'm on the Board of Appeals, so I just figured I'd ask a couple of quickie questions before Monday.
Sure.
Under the waivers that were requested, one was to not have a local impact statement. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so just done it at the guidance of the team. Our understanding is that that's not typically requested as part of the comprehensive permit. process, but I'd like to defer to our counsel on that.
Well, I have another question following that one.
Okay.
You listed $700,000 as a tax contribution that this project would be making to the town. The average tax bill in this town for a single family residence is over $10,000. If I calculate correctly, you're at $3,000 a unit average. So you know, you're putting us in the hole there. And if there are more than 55 children there, the 700,000 goes to the education department with absolutely no contribution to public services like police, fire, and other town services. So I don't see $700,000 as being very helpful.
Yeah, Brad. So that's, I mean, obviously at this point, we're just making some assumptions based on what we've seen on a per unit basis on sort of like kind towns with like kind tax rates. There's a lot of discussion that'll happen in the future with the assessors department on what that actually looks like. But, you know, having built all across the state, those are roughly the numbers that we see on these types of developments. And it's really usually done on like an income approach. You know, we are not suggesting that that is the number. We're just suggesting that that's a projection based on underwriting that could be certainly low or high. I mean, we just don't know what the number is, but you know, those discussions and ultimately that decision will come from the tax assessor.
Yeah, well, that's not very helpful planning, though.
Well, I mean, we can continue to have those discussions, certainly, Brad, throughout the process and see if we can't get better guidance on that as we go. We're happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it and look forward to speaking with you next week. Let's see. Tony, do you have your hand up?
I do.
All right, you want to go ahead?
Okay, sure. Well, thank you for finding the time. Last time we had this meeting, I had a number of questions, many of which didn't get answered. We were kind of short on time at the end. But hopefully, a lot of them have been answered in the new presentation, I'm happy to say. The first question I want to ask is, I didn't see any HVAC consultant in your list of team players.
So typically, Tony, what we do is we don't generally hire I guess we wouldn't call them a consultant. We hire they're an engineering firm, you know, that does the planning. And
Yep.
you know, we haven't hired somebody sort of to advise us, I guess. We have ongoing informal discussions and formal discussions on other projects we use one or two firms and we use them on all of our projects. So we know them well, they know us well. We can call them at any given time and ask them questions and get their input. So, you know, if there's anything that we need from them throughout the process, we can get that. But yeah, you're correct in that we haven't identified necessarily an HVAC consultant, but we have professionals at the ready that we could pull in for opinions or running things by them at any time.
Any chance you could share those with us?
Who they are?
Yeah, who they are.
Yeah, I mean, I could send you a list of a couple of groups that we
Okay,
work with, if that's
great.
okay.
That'll be fine. So the first question, will you consider both air source and vertical closed loop ground source heat pumps? And you've answered the first part. You're already considering air source with the Hyper. I assume you mean the Mitsubishi air source heat pump?
Yeah, I mean, or something equal, Tony. I mean, we haven't gotten far enough to select the product, certainly, but yeah, that's the idea exactly.
That's good.
Yep.
So the other part is, have you looked at all at using ground source or geothermal?
So we have admittedly not as much as the other systems, and you know, feedback we've gotten is that could be extremely cost prohibitive for this type of project. Again, as I said to you in my response, never saying no to anything, open, to
Sure.
ideas and trying to understand if they're viable or not. But certainly always going to be forthright about what we think, what we see in the industry, what works, what doesn't work. And, that's something we admittedly don't know as much about as we do the heat pump systems. But, what I've been told is that that's a long shot, but, we'll look at it more and, certainly, happy to get input from folks who
Yeah,
are.
okay. I have, I found about 5 different sources of multifamily geothermal that I can share with you.
Okay.
Various case studies, stories. Okay. The next
Yeah.
question is about the ground source. Could we put vertical closed loop bores in the area that's required to be clear for potable wells? And that's really a question, I think, for the Board of Health. So
Yeah, so we've asked that question initially from your list of questions of our engineers.
Yeah.
Feedback I got was that really nothing could be put in that. I assume you're talking about this area.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, feedback we got was that you can't put anything in that area because of the restrictions from DEP on the well radius. But I'd like to defer to our engineers on that one. And we have that question from you from last time and from the email. And on a night where we've got our civil engineer, whether that's Monday night or another night in the process, very happy to have them expand upon that. I'm not the expert, but my understanding is that nothing can go in that area at all. But again, defer to the experts on that.
So it's nice to have the tight construction and the high value insulation and a lot of shared walls, floors and ceilings. But what about fresh air? I think you did consider it to some extent in the new presentation today.
Well,
are
yeah.
You, are you looking at all at heat recovery or energy recovery ventilation?
Yeah, so heat recovery is a potential. We think it's a bit redundant. I mean, the new codes, and again, don't want to speak out of school. I'm not an engineer, but my understanding is the new codes do require fresh air ventilation for each individual unit. And feedback I've gotten is that should cover that. But again, that's something we can dive into with the engineers. But we've brought that up for sure, Tony, and that's on our list.
Excellent. So last time you were talking about on-demand hot water, and I see today that you switched to electric hot water heater tanks. There are also heat pump hot water tanks that are all electric and much more efficient than electric tanks. Have you considered those heat pump hot water tanks?
So haven't heard that from our team, but I'm writing that down and certainly happy to go and ask them and see if we can get an answer for that, for next week.
Sure.
Yeah.
And probably the answer is no, but are you looking at any form of heat recovery from drain water?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. On solar, again, we're enthusiastic about that. I was a little disappointed not to see any solar panels in the new pictures.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, good point. We should have touted them a little bit more, but we agree. I mean, it's the right approach. We're putting them on it. I think I mentioned maybe the project that we're building in the town of Wayland will be our first time putting solar on the roof there. So we're learning a lot about that. That's not quite.
You mentioned last time a solar consultant in Wayland. It turns out that I joined an organization called Heat Smart Alliance, and it's a number of towns, including Bolton now and Wayland. So we have quite a few people from Wayland, and I was interested in knowing who your solar consultant in Wayland is, so we can maybe close the loop with him a little bit.
Yeah, so I don't know if Mike Tulipani, if you're on, if you could give us the name. Mike's our design manager. If he's still on, he might be able to.
Yes, I'm still here, Jim. The solar consultant is Select Energy.
Select?
SOLECT.
Yeah, okay. Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
You probably spoke to some of those folks that are in your group during the process in Wayland, is my guess.
Probably did, yeah.
But that project's coming along. We'll be delivering units next summer. The structures are on their way up, so solar is certainly not installed yet, but we're very
Right.
much looking forward to doing that for the first time and seeing how that works. And we'll learn some lessons, I'm sure, on that we'll apply here and do better.
Good. Have you considered ground mount solar at all?
So
Again, the same question I asked earlier about the prohibited area around the wells.
yeah, the same
Some of
answer.
that we use for,
Same answer. I think we got to check that, but my initial understanding is that we can't put anything there, but
Okay.
not saying that's definitive. We got to.
yeah. Is each unit going to have its own national grid account and net meter?
Yes.
Okay. Are you going to have standards like LEED be used for design guidelines or for certification?
So lead, no. What we've looked at in other projects is NGBS. We found that they sort of align. We're not committed to any particular program at this time, but just try to citing something that's made a little bit more sense for these types of buildings. Is that program? I don't know if you're familiar with it.
What is it? Spell it out again, please.
NGBS, so it's National Green Builders.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are you gonna? I think you answered the Energy Star question. Everything
Yes.
that is available.
Anything that we can will be,
Yeah,
certainly.
yeah.
Yep.
And we talked a lot about charging stations. Very important. I think at least every garage should have that in each slot. Many
Yeah,
of
we'll
them.
have we can go back and count up the number that we'll have at the beginning. And then again, we always have extra conduit, like I said before,
That's right.
available for the future because it's much easier to put it in up front. The systems are the systems. They're, when the electricity is there, then it's pretty easy down the road to add more. You just got to make sure the infrastructure is there with the sizing of the amount of power coming to the site and the conduit in the right spots.
Okay, good. Few new questions. What are the R values for the walls and ceilings, exterior walls and ceilings?
I got a punt on that, Tony. Unfortunately, I don't know the answer, but I have that on my list from your email and have asked the question. We can get that certainly.
Okay. And what measures are you taking to control noise from 495?
So yeah, that's an interesting one. So we have built in all sorts of different settings around the state, including a great example is in downtown Framingham, where we were at a train crossing, which was extremely loud, not only because of just the train on the tracks, but because of the horn at the crossing.
Yeah.
And certainly we've built near highways and a lot closer to highways. It's funny, we don't, just from our perspective, and doesn't mean it's the right perspective, we don't see this as being that close to the highway in terms of noise compared to what we've built in a lot of other places in the state. And that may or may not be the right way to look at it. It's just in our experience that we've been a lot closer and not had any issues. So what we typically do, though, I can say, is when we do have scenarios where there's a reason to, we typically, not at this stage, but when we're in the design stage, post permitting, when we're actually designing the project in full with the architects and engineers, we often do an acoustical study and see if there is any reason to bolster the windows or the walls. But it's a bit early for us, just in our typical process, to do that. But something that is we've done on any project in the past that we've had a reason to, certainly.
Yep. Are you taking any measures to control, I'm sure you are, but noise through shared floors and ceilings and walls?
Yes, we definitely are. I mean, just from a business standpoint, that's important, obviously, and amongst many other reasons, quality of life for the residents. But yeah, we can get you the details on how we construct those, but certainly something that we're sensitive to as a company and as an industry.
You mentioned electric cooking. Are you going to be offering induction cooking as an option or standard?
Yeah, that's, haven't really got that far yet. That's an interesting one that we hadn't done before. Something we can look at. I don't personally know how much of an impact, if anything, that has positive or negative, but we can look at that. It's not something we've done before.
Yeah, that and a few other things here are there's a project in I'm sorry, Devon's. Used to be a military base, and they made a housing project. And they incorporated a lot of these features. I can send you a story about that, which may help.
Sure. Always happy to take a look and see what others are doing.
Unless maybe you've already looked at it. I don't know.
I have not. No, I mean, again, I'm not very familiar with that approach, but certainly open to learning more about it.
Yeah, for example, they use heat pump hot water tanks. They use heat recovery ventilation, and then they have induction cooking. So,
okay.
And it's also very interesting. They put a lot of effort into planning to make people stop and talk to each other from the front porch, things like that.
That's important for sure. We believe
so
in that.
I'm sure you'll find this interesting. I'll send it.
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
And finally, will each unit have its own HVAC equipment, or will some components be shared?
Nope, they're individual.
Okay, very good. So there'll be an outdoor unit from this each system that's on the roof. I think your pictures showed those units on the roof.
Correct. There's a mix. Some will be on the roof, some will be ground mounted, depending on the building.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate that. I know there's still a few outstanding that we'll follow up with you on along the way, but appreciate it, Tony. Let's see. Corrine or Corinne? Mackie? At least that's. Oh, you're on mute. Doesn't look like you're.
This is Vaughn Mackey using her computer.
Oh, hi, Vaughn. How you doing?
Pretty good. Hey, the number one benefit you highlighted for this project for the town of Bolton was the incremental $700,000 in property taxes. And my question, or I don't have any issues with that figure. I don't want to quibble whether it's 600 or 800 or some other number. You'll finalize that at some point. When will you have, and when will the discussion come about as to the incremental cost to the fire and safety and public works department, and most importantly to the Neshoba Regional School District? I mean, I think somebody else pointed earlier that given the average cost expenditure now with the Neshoba Regional School District of, I think it was $12,000, that's 50 or 55 or 60 students. And with the number of units in this project, one could easily surpass that. So the question would be, given those multiple areas, is this from a financial perspective? When will we know whether this is modeled to be a net financial benefit or a financial burden upon the community? Because again, if it's a financial burden, the other residents will need to carry that cost. When will that discussion and when will that data be available?
So good question, and I certainly don't mean to dodge it, but I think I got to defer to the zoning board of appeals process, and and where they want to focus and the questions they want to ask, and the anything that they might want to require. We did not submit as was pointed out earlier, we did not submit a fiscal impact study as part of the application. As advised, is not a sort of a typical part of the submission, but do expect a question to come up during that process. So I can't answer that exactly. I'm sure it's going to come up and probably early during the ZBA process, and we'll address it as requested by the board and as appropriate. But I don't know. I can't say if that'll be next week or it'll be some meeting later in the process. It's difficult to answer that. I got to defer to the board and what their approach is going to be.
Seems fundamental.
I have to say that it seems like again, not quibbling with either, whether it's $700,000 or some other item, or when the zoning board will ask for it. I guess my question is, are you modeling those impacts? Period.
Yeah, I mean, we're not modeling them, I guess, to use your term. I mean, that's a difficult thing to model. I mean, we don't know. I think we've heard a couple of different estimates on a number of school children. You could come up with, 100 people come up with 100 different estimates. We do have data, certainly, that we'll share, and we have shared earlier on the Board of Selectmen process for like kind developments, and we can bring those numbers out again and have discussions around those. But just to answer your question, frankly, no, we don't model the projects, versus the cost necessarily projected to certain things in the town. It's just it's not part of our process at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you. They appreciate the questions. Looks like there's 3 hands raised. Ed Sterling, first one I see up top here.
Thank you. I spoke before. I appreciate it. Further to what Anthony Jagodnik talked about, solar panels, electricity, is there any concern about the electrical infrastructure being able to handle the load that you would anticipate based on the electrical heating approach here? Do existing power lines handle that kind of a load for this concentrated, size of project?
Yeah, so great question. I mean, it's something that we had our engineers take a look at during our due diligence period. And yeah, the answer is yes. Whether, we'll have to work with the utility company on any kind of added infrastructure that we might need on the site or near the site. But yes, I mean, the short answer is it's been looked at, and the belief from the engineers is yes, that it can handle that load, but it's obviously a great question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. See if I can scroll down. I don't know if I'm missing anybody who might be further down the list here. Tony, do you have your hand up again? Or is it still up? I don't see any others at the moment, but I apologize if I'm missing you. Tony, if you've got another question, feel free to jump in. I don't see any other hands at the moment, unless I'm missing them. I see one on your screen. You're muted. Joys of technology. There you go.
No further questions. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I saw the hand up on the screen still. And it looks like I see 2, and one's you and one's Ed. And I think those are just remaining up there.
If you would again, Jim?
Yes, sir.
Is there any possible plan for something like a small convenience store built into the project? Possibly part of the clubhouse, possibly a unit in one of the buildings for something like that, or even some additional structure, again, for the convenience of people who, in a concentrated area could be very helpful, unable to really, reach some other location. As I say, I call it kids looking for a candy bar and a Coke. Any plans like that?
So the short answer is no, and the longer answer is, it's a great question, and one that's come up on many developments that we've worked on in areas where it seems like a great idea, but I think it's been proven out there that it's really difficult to fill those spaces. Business, owners, obviously, especially now in this day and age, struggle with the best of exposure to the public. To have something try to operate and run just on this small number of folks, and with the hope that maybe somebody comes in off of Main Street to utilize it, is highly unlikely. What we've seen in a lot of places is municipalities require ground floor retail or some sort of retail in a location where it's really just not appropriate, just because it feels like that's sort of the right thing to do. And it's remained vacant for many years. We try to avoid that. I mean, we totally understand the thought behind it. We think that the premise is great, but it generally has just never played out in our opinion well enough. It's just so difficult to run a business, and you're just limiting your pool of customers that even something small, finding somebody to run that is difficult. Now, look, there is ways at a much smaller scale, for us to offer things like that. And I don't want to say like a vending machine, but something more modern and more, more expanded than that. There are ways, of incorporating that into a property, into a say a clubhouse. That's a lot more sort of, modern and useful than just an old vending machine, but kind of that idea.
Very good point. Thank you. Excellent.
But, we can certainly look at those opportunities.
Sure.
So people don't have to, go off site, if you will, for certain things.
Okay.
Great question. Let's see. Does anybody else have a question? I don't see any hand raised. If you want to just jump in, though, if you can't figure that out, feel free. I don't see anybody waiting. All right. So it looks like nobody else has got comments, but what I just want to do is flip one more time just to the end here, just to make sure everybody has this information. Very important, obviously, to attend these meetings and encourage folks, other folks who might not be here tonight to attend the meeting. It's virtual like this meeting is. Just want to reiterate the difference will be, this will be run by the zoning board, not by us. So the chair and the board will control the process, but that is certainly the appropriate place to voice your opinion and ask questions, and we'll have our full team available for those meetings, and we're really looking forward to it. So I guess with that, I'll thank you all for your time tonight. I know everybody's busy. It's 8:20, but it feels like midnight with how dark it is. And we appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you again on Monday and going forward and working through the process. So thank you all and have a good night.
Remember the time change.